subscribe.
Hello everybody and welcome. My name's Alison, the online piano and the online violin tutor. Today this is just a video about guitars and violins. So a lot of you have been leaving comments underneath some of my videos to say that oh hi Alison, I play the guitar, I really want to play the violin. Do you think I'd find the transition easy? So if you play the guitar, what they're saying is if they do play the guitar, are they going to find it easy to pick up the violin because it's sort of similar. So I'm not a guitar player, I will be honest with you. So if I'm maybe talking a bit of rubbish here and there, it's because I'm not a guitar player, so I do apologise for that. I am a violin player, obviously, but not a guitar player. So I've sourced the information from a couple of my some of my subscribers. One of them was Martin, and one of them was called Leroy. So thank you to both of you guys for helping me out with some information. So they both play the guitar and they play the violin. So they've been giving a few of these answers. So basically, what they have said combined is that I suppose it is very similar because they are two stringed instruments, even though the violin is played this way with a bow and the guitar is more sort of played this way and plucked, if you like. But they are sort of, because they're similar instruments, people are trying to see if they will take to the violin easily enough. So what they're saying is the guitar has 6 strings, the violin only has 4 strings. So 2 less strings, I suppose, for the violin. They are different strings from what they have said as well. You don't have to press so hard on the fingerboard of the violin as you do on the guitar. Again, I'm not a guitar player, so please bear with me and please forgive me, but for the very little that I do know on the guitar, especially when you're trying to use chords, I think you have to push in quite a lot into the violin. That might be because the strings are higher up from the fretboard, or from the fingerboard on the guitar than they are on the violin. So from this point here, there's quite a bit of gap between the strings and the fingerboard, but this point here where you put your fingers, there isn't much. So maybe what they're saying in that way is that you actually don't have to press so hard. Just thinking about it, I've actually had a few questions about people saying how hard to press, and I wonder whether it is because they are guitar players that has triggered that question. So no, you don't have to press too hard, you just have to press enough so that your finger sort of pushes the string down to the fingerboard, and that's it. That's all you need to do. You don't need to sort of push any further into the violin, if you like. On the guitar you have to do bar chords, which you don't have to do on the violin, or we don't do on the violin. Technically, folks, we do if you want to do double, quadruple and triple stopping and that sort of thing, but as a whole I'd say no, you're just doing a single melody line with the fingers. But on the guitar you could be doing bar chords all the time, so I'd say no on the violin, although technically yes sometimes, but generally just go with me, for the majority of the time it's not, because it's just single notes. So that helps a lot there, because you're not having to, as one person has put it, try to snap their wrist trying to get the hang of all the bar chords and trying to twist their fingers over the fret and everything and break the bone in their wrist trying to do so. So you don't have to do any of that on the violin. So that's good news with that, and that's possibly a little bit easier on the violin than it perhaps would be on the guitar. Only the left hand is similar. The right hand bows. So in the violin, the right hand is operating the bow, whereas the right hand on the guitar is actually is strumming and plucking and grabbing loads of strings and things. So the left hand is just doing all the work. So you've just got a single melody line. So again, that might be a lot easier, because again, you're not having to prepare your fingers in all the different kind of chord shapes and wherever they are and all that sort of thing, because the violin doesn't work like that. You can do chords on the violin, but when you, like I said in the previous part, but when you do chords on the violin, they generally tend not to be all, the second finger's twisted behind. They generally not tend to be like that. They'll be written in such a way that they're easy to do, and the fingers are all set up nicely to do it. So it isn't sort of complicated, if you will, as it is with a guitar. So the left hand is just doing a single melody line, which again is probably much easier on the violin than I believe it is on the guitar. The fingerboard perspective is easier on the violin because I think Martin was the one that said this. I think because you can actually look at the strings, and I think you can get a better perspective from where your eyes are to where they are on, you know, on the fingerboard. I'm actually quite close, but when the guitar is sort of, I'm just holding up here so you can see it, but when you're here, you're almost kind of trying to sort of look over it as such, so you can't sort of see it so much, whereas the violin is flat when it's up on my shoulder, so I can see it. So the perspective is a lot easier on the violin than the guitar as well, so you might find it easier from that sense. The finger patterns are the same, so there are no frets on the violin, so that can be a bit of an issue, but I mean, as you can see, I've got some dots on here. I don't normally play with dots on my violin, by the way, folks, but I've just been filming some other videos and that I needed some dots on, and I've just kept them off rather than having to take them off for this video and put them straight back on for the next video. So it's actually quite useful that they are here, because you can put the dots here and they do act as frets if you like, but in this case you put your finger on them, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, you put in the guitar, you put your fingers behind frets, you don't actually put them on, and you can get sort of almost close to a fret if you like, or within sort of a millimetre or two, and it will still sound fine. But with the violin you have to be exactly on the dot, or else it's not going to sound in tune. So with the violin, do correct me if I've just said that wrong, folks, but with the violin you have to put your fingers directly on the dot. So you can have these dots here if you're starting out as frets, and the good thing, starting out on the violin, sorry, to replace the frets that you would miss on the guitar. But the good news is that you don't have to keep doing them all the way up the violin, because you'll only really be using this area down here to start with anyway before you start moving up, whereas the guitar is a lot different. You tend to use, for what I've seen, a lot more of the fret when you're going up and you're doing arpeggios and jumping up and chords and scales and all that kind of thing, if you're doing that sort of thing on the guitar. So the finger patterns are the same, going back to that. So if you've got the open G string at the bottom here, if you put down a finger, it's going to be an A, the next finger's a B, the next finger's a C, the next one's a D, the next thing. So every time you put down a finger, it will give you the next note up, and it works the same with sharps and flats as well. I'm not going to go into all that kind of detail, but suffice to say, each time you put a finger, it will give you the next note up, as it will exactly the same with a guitar. So that's good news there. And the last point, I think, is that vibrato is different with the guitar to the violin. It's similar in a way, I guess, because you don't do vibrato on a piano, for example. You don't do vibrato on a clarinet or a flute, or you do, but you do it in a completely different way, because obviously you wouldn't probably do it with your fingers, and you certainly don't do vibrato on the piano anyway. So yes, even though the vibrato might be slightly different between the two instruments, it's still the same, if that makes sense. So you're still having to use your fingers to do the vibrato. So I think you might actually roll or something more with the guitar. Again, I don't play the guitar, so forgive me if I've said this wrong, but I think that whatever the vibrato would be on the guitar is slightly different to the way it is on the violin, but you've got that hand movement already there. So I would probably, I'd be fairly confident in saying that if you could do a pretty good vibrato on the guitar, you could probably 99% adapt to doing vibrato on the violin, because you've already set your brain into that way. You've already got the idea. So whether the guitar is going a different way and the violin is going this way, you've got the idea of that in your brain. So it would just be changing ever so slightly. So it's almost like me trying to sort out my bow grip with the right hand, and then me trying to hold it with my left hand. I might not be very good at it, but because my right hand and my brain knows exactly how to hold the bow, I'd be able to use exactly the same way of doing it, but I could change that for my left hand, and I could probably get used to doing it no problem. I just have to slightly adapt. So vibrato is probably a good thing. So you might get on better with vibrato if you already play the guitar, because you've got the idea of the vibrato, compared to, say, the piano, where there is no vibrato at all. So I think, I suppose in summary, I think the only real thing in common with the guitar is the fact that it's sort of similar in shape ish in the way it's designed, you know, in that the strings aren't going off that way and that kind of thing. So it's similar in shape. They've got strings, they've got pegs, they've got a fingerboard. Oh, you'll probably find tuning a lot easier as well, because you'd, instead of, I suppose, just plucking and tuning the pegs, the only difference is that you might want to bow and tune the violin, but you could easily just pluck that and tune it, pluck it and tune it. So I can tune a guitar because I tune it in exactly the way I do, exactly the same way as I do the violin. I suppose thinking about it, I haven't played the guitar. I don't know why I haven't played the guitar, but you know, I find it quite difficult just finding enough time to make videos and practice the violin and the piano and all the other kind of things that I'm doing, and writing violin books and all that kind of thing as well, that I just haven't got around to playing the guitar at the moment. But I suppose for me, going from violin to guitar, looking at the other way round, yes, actually, probably a fraction easier, because I'm not having to use the bow, my fingers are just plucking. But that does get a lot more complicated because you're going to be plucking several strings. So there I might lose out and I'd have to learn that technique. But I can read the music, and I do, my fingers will operate, because I do have the idea of I've got to put my finger in a certain place to give me a certain note, and you've just got to learn where that is. So you could take that across from both guitar, violin, from the violin to the guitar and things. So I think really in music, the general idea is basically the same, going from any instrument to any instrument, because it all has the same underlying process of music, doesn't it? It's just going from one instrument to another. But I definitely think, yes, if you do play the guitar, you will find it helps you with the violin. So I hope that's helped, and please forgive me if I've given you a few guitar inaccuracies, but like I said, I don't play the guitar, I've got limited knowledge on the guitar, and I have had help from Martin and Leroy, so thanks very much to them for giving me some information on this. Hope it's been helpful to you, and I hope anybody out there that plays the guitar, that fancies having a go at the violin, go get a violin, go and have a go. What's the worst that can happen? You'll love it, trust me. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
Subscribe.